Karthik, I'm really going to miss this car, man.
Swift diesel, dude. You and a whole lot many more people.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember the first time I drove this car, the torque rush, the handling. It was just so involving to drive.
I think its legend status here is because it could get Enthu Cutlass like you and me excited. We would run home back then to our parents and say,
And
buy
your dad
this.
could buy.
Yeah, he would buy one and the family would be happy with it. Frugal, practical enough. Well, quite a package.
So in April 2020, this car is going to leave a void to fill for sure.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is going to be there are going to be newer cars that are going to try to fill that gap, and that brings in Hyundai's Grand i10 Nios. Now, like your Hyundai should and does, it is wowing you in so many different ways, but what makes the Nios especially interesting right now in this context is that it's supposed to be more involving to drive. So can it kind of mask the absence of the Swift when it goes away?
But if we are talking about exciting to drive cars, how can we forget the Ford Figo? I mean, it's got a dhamakedar diesel engine and also it's a Ford. So it's supposed to be a good car to drive.
Yeah, and if we put these here together, the answer that we'd end up looking for is, will the Swift go into the history books? We'll just turn the page and say it's gone?
Or should you buy this car right now before it goes away?
Wow. Now, no matter what their attitudes, these cars have to make an impression, and the Hyundai is, well, definitely being bolder this time around. The Grand i10 Nios is, if you look at the face, for me, it looks quite smart, it looks European, and it works for me. The disappointment is that this language doesn't quite carry on to the rest of the package.
Yeah, from the side it looks a little too similar to the old Grand.
Yeah, and the rear, I think we've said it before, like the Tata Tiago.
Yeah.
And it has to try that a little bit harder because, well, it is smaller in terms of dimensions than the others.
But it does have some wow elements like projector headlamps, the projector fog lamps.
Segment first, the projector fog lamps.
segment first.
Yeah. And of course, the machine finished alloy wheels.
They look really nice.
So yeah, it manages to look attractive, but setting the tone.
I think it's got something missing though.
Attitude.
No, personality. If you want loads of personality, it's the Swift. I mean, it's a design icon, and see a Swift on the road, you won't mistake it for anything else, be it the first gen, second gen, or this, the third gen.
I completely see that because that floating roof, the strong shoulders, that squat look, it looks sporty and, you know, like you said, distinctive, nothing else like it.
It also gets all the wow features. You get LED headlamps, LED DRLs.
No projector fog lamps like the Nios.
Yes.
But that aside, it does get LED tail lamps, that I'll admit. One disappointment with the Swift has been the paint quality, which has started looking dull.
So Karthik, no LED headlamps, no LED DRLs.
I know. It's these superficial things matter today. It creates that wow look. But come on, man, it's got contrast color wing mirrors, contrast color roof, the black dot alloys. Yeah, it could have done with those special things for today's market. But we have to point out here that this is the cheapest car here by a big margin.
But also, after the facelift, this car now looks modern, balanced. Small changes have made such a big difference.
I saw this and I was just thinking, didn't the last time I see the Figo think that it was getting a bit boring? Yeah, but it's changed with this, and that's especially surprising considering it is the oldest car here.
Like on the outside, there are some updates on the interiors of the Ford Figo as well. But even now, the dash layout looks a little too old. Yes, you do get a modern touchscreen system which is really bright and easy to use even in bright sunlight. But again, it misses out on features like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But you do get some important features like automatic wipers, and more importantly, you get 6 airbags. This is the only car to get that despite being the cheapest. In terms of front seats, the seat is a little too narrow. There's not much lateral support. so you do slide around a bit. So Karthik, is the rear seat any better?
Well, it's a bit of a hit and miss. The hit is that in terms of width, it's nice. So like, for a family, they'll be a little bit better accommodated here. But if you look at the practical aspects, you could do with more headroom here for taller occupants. Knee room looks good, but the seat's kind of intruding into the back here. And in terms of storage space, there's nothing on the doors. So for longer journeys, it'll get a little annoying on that front. So ideal family backseat, not quite working.
Figo's 257-litre boot is the least impressive. We could fit a full-size suitcase along with an overnighter, or a medium-sized suitcase, an overnighter and a soft bag. The shallow boot is to blame here. The Swift's boot, on the other hand, was a revelation. It could cram a full-size suitcase, an overnighter and 2 soft bags with ease. Plus, if you bring in the 60-40 split folding rear seat, you can pack in a lot more.
The best boot, is this the best back seat as well? In one aspect for sure, and that's the width. This is the widest back seat here, which means if you want 3 people in the back, this will accommodate them the best. And in terms of knee room, if you look at it, you've got adequate space on offer. Even the headroom is great. But what really makes this work is that the seats feel more supportive, the window line is flatter, so you get a better view out, but it isn't perfect because you still have this panel here blocking your view and these large front seats with the large headrests.
Stop complaining about the wide front seats. This is why these seats are so comfortable. They're wide, you have good lateral support, and also the driving position is just right. Then there's the flat bottom steering wheel, which looks and feels sporty to hold. Overall dash design, it looks modern, but there are some elements which are not that great. For example, the touchscreen system now feels old, the graphics looks a bit dated, and also it's placed a little low on the dashboard, which makes it a little difficult to use on the move. Then there's the fact that this is the most expensive car, but in terms of premiumness, this car is a bit lacking. Talking of premium interiors, the Grand i10 Nios is by far the best amongst the 3. And also, even if you go a segment higher, these interiors might just set the benchmark. That is also because of the plastic quality, the fabrics, the lighter colors, and also things like the honeycomb texture on the dash, on the door pads, and the rotary knobs for the AC vents makes the cabin look really special. In terms of features, the touchscreen system is the biggest amongst the 3. Even the user interface is easy to use, and then you have these physical buttons which makes your life really easy. Now this is a Hyundai, so they have to give one wow feature. So in the Nios, it's wireless charging. In terms of seating comfort, the Nios is not as good as the Swift in the front, but on its own it's quite good. In fact, this seat has better under thigh support. So how's the rear seat, Karthik?
You were talking about setting benchmarks? Well, the Nios is doing some really strange things here in the back seat as well. In some dimensions, it's actually better than its elder sibling, the i20. Yeah, knee room, headroom, some of those things. And you know what? It isn't just numbers, it actually feels comfortable and spacious. You see the seat, it's been angled upwards, and this gives you great under thigh support, makes it feel more spacious than it is, and it is pretty spacious. The large windows increase the airiness, the light colors for the cabin, again, just open up the sense of space. And it's packing in more as well in terms of storage spaces in the door. You've got rear aircon vents, 12-volt charging socket. It's pretty feature packed that way. It might not be the widest cabin, but even on that front it surprised us because you've got a flat floor, the rails for the seats aren't intruding, so you've got good foot room. So family backseat, this is one surprising package.
The Nios's boot can't pack in as much as the Swift, but it is better than the Figo. We could fit a medium-sized suitcase, an overnighter and 2 soft bags here in the Hyundai. But when you add it all up, be it in terms of features, cabin quality, space or comfort, the Nios has the edge over the other 2. But can it maintain its advantage once we start driving?
Okay, we've gone going, and the first thing we're going to talk about is something that caught my attention: fuel efficiency. Now, I know all these engines are different. This Nios has the smallest engine, the Swift's a little bigger, that's a 4-cylinder, this is a 3, and the Figo is 1.5, and that has the most amount of horsepower. But in terms of city fuel efficiency, all of them are pretty much neck and neck. But when it comes to the highway, there are differences. And this, the Nios, is the least fuel efficient of the 3 on the highway, but it's not low.
Okay, before I get to that, can you tell me the drivability figures, please?
Okay, in terms of roll-on accelerations, the Nios is quicker than the other two, and by a solid margin.
And the reason for that is the gearing, for both the fuel efficiency as well as the roll-on figures. Hyundai has given it shorter gearing so that it feels peppy, and that's why the drivability figures are really good. But on the flip side, out on the highway, because the gearing is short, the fuel efficiency suffers a bit.
But if we talk about city use, then in that case, with a light clutch, that peppiness from low revs and that gearing, it just becomes nice and easy to drive.
Oh, yes, it does feel relaxing, but even out on the highway, it feels more than enough, despite having the smallest capacity engine.
But if you were to, let's say, be with a full load, passengers, luggage,
Yes, then you might have to downshift a bit, especially while overtaking.
for highways or longer journeys, what I would have liked better is the suspension setup at the rear. Here, the front for the driver and the co-passenger, the setup is fine. But at the rear, it feels a touch too soft still.
Yeah, it still bounces, especially over bigger potholes. So, like for example, in the other cars, sometimes you can go fast over, say, rough surfaces. But with this car, sometimes you have to slow down because there's a lot more cabin movement.
On the upside, in the city at lower speeds, it's a more pliant ride.
Yes.
It feels more cushioned.
It's got a softer edge to it.
And what's also softer about it is the engine note. It's not sharp.
And it's a 3-cylinder.
Yeah, but on the 3-cylinder front, when you start up at idle, you do hear that thrum a bit and you can feel the vibes. But as you get going, it just disappears.
Smooths out completely.
This feels really nice to drive.
Yeah. And also the sound insulation, it's so good. As soon as you get in this car and start driving, you can feel that Hyundai has done a great job. You can hardly hear any tire noise, there's not much wind noise. So this just makes it more soothing to drive. Okay, that's a noisy engine.
It always has been, hasn't it?
Yes.
But I think the changing competition is changing our expectations of refinement. Blame the Nios maybe.
And also there's a lot more tire noise and you can hear everything from outside in this car.
Yeah, this cabin isn't as well insulated as the Nios for sure. You can hear everything a lot more. But you know what? I'm not going to complain about the engine from here for sure. This is one lively engine, man. Like you were saying, you know, wait for the revs to get past 1800 and it really does make you smile.
Yes, it does. But what about city driving?
Well,
The lag.
I know, man. You've got to learn to live with it a little bit. It's not that it's annoying. It's just that there's a bit of waiting involved. Like under 2000 RPM, under 1500 RPM, it starts to move. But to really get going, it does keep you waiting.
But you can always downshift.
Yeah, that's the worst case, and that's not really a bad thing. Yeah. If you're talking about highway use, the rev happy nature of this engine, its lightness just makes it so much usable there as well. The good thing is the power doesn't drop off at high revs, so you really can keep going at this for overtakes as well without fussing about with the gearbox.
As for the ride, the lightweight Swift feels a bit firm at low speeds, and as a result, you can feel sharp bumps and hear the thunks from the suspension. However, as you go faster, it offers a more comfortable ride as it stays flat. What? The fuel efficiency figures of this car are really surprising, man. I mean, this has the biggest and the most powerful engine.
Yeah, I know. It is quite a surprising engine in the sense that At low speeds, this engine has also shown that it is the quietest of the three, right? Power, fuel efficiency, and quietness. But there is one area where this civil engine otherwise can be a bit annoying, and that's city driving. Would you agree that its throttle response is how Ford enthusiasts would like it? Properly responsive, right?
Yes.
But you stick it in the gear and you just go on the gas, and then you're left
With turbo lag.
Yeah, and it's not like the engine doesn't have the punch. It's the gearing here, it's tall.
Yeah.
So when you shift down, suddenly there's like this boom, you rocket ahead, which is not what you want in stop-go traffic.
But I just love this car out on the highway, man.
Dude, that's where this feels at home. You just want to see an open road and point the Figo's nose towards it. That's it.
Now, coming to the most fun aspect of this comparison. Which of these cars is best at attacking corners? We went out first in the Swift to set a benchmark for the Ford and Hyundai.
Okay, you look really happy.
It's hard not to, man. This chassis is shockingly good. I mean, like you remember the engine of the Swift diesel? I mean, the first one you drove? For me, that boing moment was when I first drove this generation Swift. And the chassis, oh man.
But I'm not a big fan of the steering though.
It really is such a missed opportunity for a chassis that is this lively. It's a chassis that reacts to your throttle being lifted off, the brakes being put on. You can make it change. I mean, you can change how it's steering into a corner by doing that. And imagine if the steering was really communicative. It would have been magical.
So, can the Nios match up to the high standards of the Swift?
Can it out-Swift the Swift?
No it won't. Especially, it doesn't feel as playful. And also the rear doesn't really match up with the front. The front feels sharper than the rear. So,
you know what? This is a little annoying for me because there was a time when we would drive Hyundais and the suspension setup would be a bit worrying. And then Hyundai's improved, and then it was just annoying. Where now we're at a setup where we're saying, man,
that's just one thing.
yeah, it could be so good.
Yeah.
And well, there's that X factor that the Swift has, right?
It still does.
So, can the Figo trouble the Swift when it comes to the fun factor?
If we were to ask the Figo the tough question, do you bleed blue?
No, it doesn't.
I don't think so. I mean, it's got confidence. Like you can feel the grip from the chassis when you're going into a corner. It is super composed.
But do you remember the Fiesta? The Figo, the old Figo I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel the same.
And the difference is that sense of tactility. Like you felt like the car was pulling you into what it was doing, letting you know what you needed to do, which is kind of aloof. I mean, over here.
So unfortunate. It's got the engine, but the handling. Oh, what a car this would have been.
So, is the Figo the answer that we're looking for?
In some aspects, yes, but as a family car, especially on the inside, it just feels a little old. Even the seats, you have the space, but the seating comfort isn't that great. So
It could do with a little bit more of that sense of richness of, buying a new car today.
Yes.
For sure.
But yes, in terms of straight line performance, it's the king. But what is really disappointing, which you will agree with, is the handling finesse.
I know, man. For those of us who have experienced what Ford means by way of the Fiesta, of the first gen Figo, that benchmark is a lofty benchmark, and this doesn't quite hit that.
So Karthik, does the Nios help you get over the Swift diesel?
As a family car buyer, absolutely yes. I mean, despite being the smaller package, it has surprised us. It's got room on the inside, it's got comfort, the cabin experience is really rich, it's feature loaded, it's great value, and whether you're being driven around or whether you're driving it, you enjoy the time spent in it. It's nice and relaxing.
Even the old car was relaxing, but what really surprised me with this car is that it drives confidently now. You can actually have some fun from behind the wheel.
Yeah, but it's not perfect, yeah.
Yeah, it could have done with a bit more finesse in terms of suspension setup, especially at the rear.
Yeah, that would have been better even for the ride
Okay,
quality.
stop. Answer the question.
Okay, so the Grand i10 Nios will fill the void left by the Swift diesel, but not entirely.